from an Australian perspective, the ecosystem in our part of the world should be developing, and more importantly for this audience, how this should develop across the region. So as the chair of Fishburners, I see a lot of early stage companies, typically founders from 2 to 5 people. And we help them grow by putting together our own little ecosystem in our community of supporting them. And a supporting ecosystem is really about securing funding, helping them go to market with their products and services, and really soaking up advice from other successful founders. Gaining inspiration for the community is a big part of what we do to bring in the next generation of entrepreneurs as well. When we talk about that from an ecosystem perspective, we have to stay very focused. We have to stay focused on the founder. And, you know, at Fishburners, we live and breathe for the founders. So I think it's only appropriate that I actually involve 2 of our great founders in our hub to actually help communicate what they're going through and the challenges they have as startup founders. So the first one is Justin. He's been in the community for a number of years. I'd just like Justin to give an introduction to his company and also in terms of how he fits in the ecosystem and what we can do better for Justin.
Thanks, Clive, and hello to the audience. So my name is Justin Wasnage. I'm the CEO and founder of Vloggy, which is a video submission management platform that essentially makes it easy for organizations to collect and manage video from their stakeholders at massive scale. And I guess the Australian ecosystem for startups is quite important because there are several government grants, both at a federal and the various state levels, and we've definitely benefited from those. The research and development grant in particular allows us to offset the very high labor costs we have in Australia. We can claim back about 40% of the cost of development through that initiative.
Have you done that, Justin? Is that have you experienced that yourself?
We have definitely done that. We've been able to claim that for the past 3 years. You must be bringing something novel and new to the market, and must be actually doing research to solve a problem that hasn't actually been solved before. We have a lot of very hard video tech in the center of our platform that we've developed through that. But I guess your question about what could be done more, if you look at the US, some of the states like California actually have programs like sprint procurement, where they actually involve startups in the problem solving phase, and they get paid licenses, which may then lead to contracts, and also they're paired up with larger companies who can actually execute, and that's kind of what we need here, and maybe in other countries as well. So
is that government contracts that you're talking about in particular?
Yes, but reversed. So rather than the normal way of procurement where government sets out what they need and then goes out to tender, instead a government agency comes up with a problem and gets innovative companies who are better at solving problems to actually solve the problem, and then forms a structure around them with more experience or larger companies to actually deliver.
Right. So it hasn't happened yet, but it's in the plans to happen.
It's happened once in New South Wales, which is the state we're in here, about 5 years ago. And there is a pathway in place, but it still hasn't happened.
Okay. So let's move on to our second founder. Michael is a company called Play Today. Michael?
Thanks, Clive. So I'm Michael Dries. I'm the COO of Play Today. Play Today is the Web3 golf company, and we're a platform that is all about golf and combining Web3 technologies, though, to, I guess, take what is a very traditional game in golf and drawing the best of Web3. We are a platform designed by players for players, and there's 3 main pillars really to our platform. So the first is a GPS and scoring app that players use out on course, where we believe the first and certainly the best in terms of making the wallet creation, so the crypto wallet creation process, very seamless. So all things crypto and NFT around the golfing experience, and also the world's first golf metaverse.
So, Michael, you built this company here in Sydney, Australia. Talk to me a little bit about your experience of recruiting tech people in Australia.
Yeah, look, I think, Clive, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that every startup, really, regardless of the industry, is facing. We've been quite effective in working with the universities and local colleges through internship programs. Most of our recruitment has actually come through those programs. And so essentially interns have evolved into full-time positions with us. In many cases, they're leaders now within our business. And I think we're almost uniquely placed, though, to be able to do that because the technologies that we're building on are so new that it's very difficult. For instance, we build our metaverse environments on Unity. It's just impossible to find someone with 10, 15 years experience in Unity because it hasn't existed that long. So for us, that's been really our main way of growing.
With those people coming through the universities, they originally came from within the region. So we're talking here today about the regional, the regional comprehensive economic partnership we have across this region. Most of your employees come from within this region and they relocate into Australia. Why do they do that?
Yeah, look, you're right, Clive, and probably half or even slightly over half of our workforce have come to us as overseas students that have done internship programs. I think there's, attractive visa options to do that pathway. But I think once they're here in Australia and in Sydney, they tend to want to stay for the lifestyle.
So have we a simple visa process to enable that to happen?
Look, it's the one we've got, and it's the only one I've known. I'd say it certainly could be improved, but we've certainly sponsored, I think probably 5 or 6 people through that system, and it's worked and it's been good. It takes a bit of time and costs a bit of money, so it could certainly be improved.
And going forward, as you grow as a company, would you see that you could hire people from within the region who would stay in the region but work remotely?
Yeah, definitely. And that's always been the case. But I think particularly with COVID, and I know every country in the region's had a slightly different experience with COVID, but Australia was, very much in that harsh lockdown. And that's made all businesses, startups or not, it's made all businesses reconsider their approach to hybrid working and working remotely. So it's actually quite rare that we get our entire team together in place. So what that's done is that's certainly made us more agreeable to having, people placed in the regions that this group has focused on.
Okay. So just to summarize for Sydney, Australia, it's really about the people having visas and access to great people to come and deliver for the services that particularly the startup community need. And secondly, having the government support to enable the startups and the entrepreneurs to have enough funding to use those people and create huge value for the economy. So thank you very much from Sydney, Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, team, for your insightful sharing. Next, please welcome Dr. Michael Hwang, CEO of Bigbang Angels.
Thank you for having me. I'm the Michael Hwang, the Managing Director of the Bigbang Angels. I'd like to say the startup ecosystem in Korea. Let me have a presentation. Would you share my slide? Okay, good. Okay, next, please. Okay, you can find my profile in the LinkedIn. Please contact me directly in the LinkedIn. Next. Bigbang has invested in more than 100 startups in 10 years. These startups has produced around 800 million in market values. Next, please. We have a 10-year experience in terms of accelerator program and the investment. And recently we started investment into the global startups, including some Singapore, some Switzerland startups too. Next. Yeah, I think I would like to let you know that some investors and partners in Korea. Next. Yeah, next. You need to know the stock market size, and next, and investment trend. Actually, last year, 6 billion has been invested into the startups. Next. And sectors, absolutely the healthcare bio and ICT service was very preferable. Next. And you need to, what kind of sectors they've invested. These are top 6 bushes. All of these bushes has more than about billion AUM. Next. And which sectors is the most active area in Korea? You can find it. Next. And you need to know what kind of difference in institutional investors in Korea. Next. Such as accelerators and bushy CVC and public investors. Next. And I believe that you need to meet this kind of accelerators bushes and corporate bushes in this association called Korea Early Stage Investors Associations, which is the largest or most active investors in early stage, particularly. Next. And accelerators. Next. I think these top 6 accelerators has experience in terms of investment into the not only Korean startups, but also the Vietnam, Chinese, or SCA startups too. Next. I think the Bigbang, we could provide this kind of 3 different values. Absolutely, we could offer the business opportunities powered by my portfolio companies and other 2 million supporting program, and absolutely more than 300 corporations to develop the business opportunity in Korea. Next. I think you need to know the differences in terms of venture capital and corporate venture capital and corporate account, which means they have a different objective of investment, not just about financial gain. Next. For example, you need to know the GS Shop is a listed company in Korea, has invested in startups in 9 years with 300 million. And InfoBank, which is another listed company, has invested in more than 100 startups in last 6 years. Maybe you know the name of neighbors. They even have different entities in order to invest into the startups, such as Spring Camp is another venture capital arm. D2 is another kind of investment account for their internal purpose, which means these kind of corporate bushes has a different arms which have a different purpose to invest. Next. I think the most important thing in Korean startup ecosystem is the Korean government. Government invests more than 1 billion for year in various support program and R&D fund for startups. Next. Particularly, you need to know the name of TIPS, which is the R&D grant program. We call it 1-to-7 matching R&D program. This program has annual budget of 100 million. Even next year is up to $150 million. Next. And I believe that you need to meet this kind of government agencies, Seoul cities, coded, and healthcare focus, and trade focus, another regional focus, and even the smart farm focused agencies you need to know. Next. And particularly, which is the Incheon Startup Park, is another Incheon-based incubator. And particularly, you need to know this accelerator and incubator because they have a great partners such as Shinhan Bank and Celltrion, which is the largest listed company in Korea. Next. Then they are offering in terms of office and fund and partners. Next. Lastly, I would like to let you know the Bigbang Angels program for the global startups called when you can find the base camp. Next. This year, we ended this program with 10 global startups. All of these global startups is coming from all around the world, including Europe, Asia, US too. And some of them, particularly one company, we invested this company and we will help them to get into the Korean market as a joint venture between us. Next. Next, yeah. I'd like to meet not just Korean startups, but also the global startups. Particularly, I prefer the deep tech startups, hardware startups, or material startups, something like that. Please let me know what kind of technology you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your insightful sharing on the Korean startup community. So next up, please welcome Mr. Takehiko Ishida, manager of 01 Booster.
Hi, I'm Ishida, Intern Booster. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Today, I would like to share three things. The first one is our introduction. The second one is present and prediction regarding to startup in Japan. The last one is tips of how to start a startup in Japan. And next slide, please. Okay, first, let me introduce myself. After I graduated from university, I joined Sony Music Entertainment and I was in charge of artist promotion. And after working for Sony Music for 7 years, I joined Fog Inc. as one of founding member as the head of the corporate development office. And in October 2021, I joined Drum Booster and responsible for overall startup support in the business development department. And next slide, please. Okay, here is the introduction of Drum Booster. And next slide, please. Up next, yeah, thanks. We are one of accelerator in Japan. Our mission is change the world by changing Japan into business creation nation. And next slide, please. And here is our business domain. We provide variety of programs such as corporate accelerator program, entrepreneurial accelerator, and government accelerator, university accelerator, etc. And in this July, we established the Booster Capital as our group company and its fund. We invest to seed and early stage startup mainly. And next, please. Yeah, here's total track records of our accelerator programs. And so far, we have delivered corporate accelerator programs more than 60 and support and collaboration with over 500 startups and 6,800 business plan reviewed through these activities. And next, please. Okay, now let me start the main contents. I'm gonna tell you the situation about startups in Japan and prediction in future. So next, please. Okay, there are about 6,300 startups in Japan and 2,000 to 2,500 startups established additionally every year. In regard to the number of establishment in 2012, it was only 1,000, so it was about a double since then. But in US, it is said that 1,000 startups existed, so there is still a big gap compared to US. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the ratio of Japanese startup series. You can find the ratio in pie chart on the right. As you can see, 70% of startups is under seed stage. So unfortunately, emerging unicorn company made in Japan would be far from now. Maybe. And next slide, please. Okay, and then this is the situation of finance and fund. Look at the bar chart. Here it is. The total amount of startup funding is 2021 was about $5 billion. And the amount of investment in startup is gradually increasing since 2012. On the other hand, look at the line chart. Number of startup company who could receive investment it has been decreased since 2018. This is because VCs have concentrated to high perspective startups, not to invest to seed early startups. Well, by the way, in 2021, there was $73 trillion investment in the world in total. So amount of investment in Japan is still small. Okay, next slide, please. So from here, I'm gonna tell you why fewer startups are established in Japan. Next, please. Okay, here's a global entrepreneur index ranking in 2019. Japan is 26th rank in the world. And next slide, please. And here's the reason why Japanese does not start up. And first one is insufficient personal fund. As I mentioned earlier, there is less opportunity to have investment in seed early stage. In our culture, companies should prove the possibility by their own money at first. And the second one is risk of failure. Well, basically, Japanese are afraid of failure. And the last one is no idea on how to start a business, how to grow a company. We may need to think our entrepreneur education system. And then next slide, please. Yeah, and out of 53 countries, the rank of entrepreneurial education while in school is 44th, and entrepreneurial education after graduation is 30th. That means Japanese entrepreneurship education is behind, especially in developed countries. Okay, next, please. Yeah, here. What we have to do, what we like building ecosystem players should do in this situation is, at first, we have we have to build a better startup ecosystem, such as financing, entrepreneur education, human resourcing. We need to create a more comfortable working environment for startups. And second thing is boost CVC engagement. Japan is a unique country where the ratio of investment from VC and CVC is different compared with other countries. From CVC, China is 9%, Europe is 17%, and America 26%, while Japan for 34%. So money to startups comes from existing big companies directly. That means startup in Japan has more opportunity to get invest from CVCs. The third thing is active M&A more. This is a weak point of Japan ecosystem. Only 100 startups are acquired annually. Most of exit happens at IPO. As a fact, there are a lot of living dead startups in Japan because IPO is supposed to the most successful scenario. Once M&A become more popular, it will become easier to establish startups and more entrepreneurs will be able to obtain cash and try to next challenge. I would also like to encourage M&A with government and large companies. And this is not all, but necessary to make up progress. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here's the tips. If you want to start a business in Japan, what should you do? Is next slide. Yeah. Please take a note for 3 things if you want to establish and grow a startup in Japan. And the first one is talk with ecosystem insiders like us, like some players. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're aiming for startup growth in Japan, it is important to collaborate with a large company and fundraising from CVC. So connecting with startup ecosystem players like us will help you a lot. The second one is localize is a key. Japanese market and major people is quite introvert and intending to exclusive for overseas because it is still extremely not good at English. Therefore, localization is essentially required if you want to develop service in Japan. It is highly likely that communication with business partner will be in Japan. So if you can do, you need a Japanese native speaker as soon as possible. The last thing is set KPI for POC. You should know what Japanese like and what they want to. So POC is important. So next, please. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's all what I wanted to say. Then below there is a connect email address there. So feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Takehiko, for your sharing. So we'll now move on to a discussion and Q&A session. So for our audience on-site and online, you're welcome to raise questions through the Q&A box. So just now we've been mentioning a lot about like Australia, Korea, and the Japan ecosystem in like a general trend and perspective. So I'd like to invite all of you to maybe share a few thoughts on which stage or like which industry vertical of startups do you believe has the greatest potential to grow and expand in your region?
Which category? Okay. Yes. So happy to answer that from Australia's perspective. So on the software side, we see a great future in the Web3 industry. In more of our traditional sectors, we are very strong in agri-tech, because obviously Australia is a very large exporter of agricultural products. So for us, the future, is across many sectors, but what we're seeing is a huge growth in Web3 and a really continued expansion in agri-tech. Justin, I know you've done some research on this yourself. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Clive. So, as we highlighted earlier, the main problem that Australia has is a very high cost of labor here. So actually those technology sectors where labor costs are less important are medtech, because the price you get for those goods is very high. So, and the regulatory burdens are high. So there's higher barriers to entry. But also, like you said, agtech is really, because of Australia's big history in exporting agriculture and broadacre farms and things like this, that actually need precision technology to automate the work of farmers. Again, this was born out of necessity because the cost of labor was so high. So really, some of those and aerospace and some other areas where there's high regulatory burdens make the most sense in Australia because of the high labor cost.
Right, thank you. So maybe how about Michael or Takehiko? Do you have any thoughts on like which industry in particular you think has the greatest potential to grow in your region?
Yeah, sure. Look, as Clive said, definitely Web3, which is heartwarming for us because we are very much a Web3 company. I think in addition to agtech, as Clive said, in Australia's always performed really well in financial services. So we've always had strong universities, trained people, put people overseas, and I think that sort of decades-long ecosystem feeds nicely into Web3 and particularly, crypto, digital wallets, digital collectibles.
And of course, I'm going to say that the future is video because we're a video startup.
Right. Thank you so much from the Australian perspective. Do we have any ideas from the Asian world? Perhaps Michael or Takehiko, you may add a few.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. First of all, in terms of software market, I think the SaaS or B2B SaaS software will be arising in the Korean market. Honestly speaking, maybe 10 years ago, there is about no software SaaS market in Korea. Every big corporations don't want to use the SaaS software for their internal purpose. But you may see a lot of new startups emerging in Korea in lasting 10 years. We believe that it's about 10,000 startups in the market. These young generations startups could use the SaaS software for their collaboration, for their communication, for their HR, something like that. I think, yeah, it is a new trend. And absolutely, you can see the pet-related market. There are so many other pet market is arising, you know. The pet healthcare, pet food, pet hospitals, pet whatever. Sometimes I feel like that, okay, Korea could be the pet heaven in the world.
Yeah.
It could be another good market. Absolutely, there are new demand in terms of healthcare service for the aged people, for the elderly people, you know. It is a sad story, but absolutely it is a new market opportunity too in Korea. Which means I believe these kind of a new markets driven by the deep technology, robots, you know, robots for hospitals, robots for retail stores, whatever, right? I think that this kind of deep tech companies could be attractive.
Thank you. So I think time is running short. So I'd like to invite you all maybe to give a few words before we officially conclude the session. So you may feel free to take the space.
Maybe our Japanese friend who didn't participate. Do you want to lead this one?
Okay.
And congratulations, by the way, on a wonderful overnight performance by Japan.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes. So I'd say maybe we can conclude this session if we don't have anything to add on. So once again, thank you, the Australian team, Clive, Michael and Takehiko, for your insights. And I'm sure our audience has learned a lot from it. And may I invite all of our speakers to maybe look into your camera for a group photo taking.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Take a photo.
Yes, so hold on. So 3, 2, 1, cheers. Great. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So this marks the end of our session. So we hope you find this discussion fruitful. And if you have any comments and suggestions, or maybe you would like to approach any of our speakers later on, you may fill out the questionnaire by scanning the QR code on screen. And don't forget to visit our exhibitors booth on site and online for collaboration with participants all over the world. So for the next session, HKTDC Cross Hang Seng Inno Club, Female Entrepreneurship in Hong Kong will start at 2 p.m. Please stay tuned and thank you so much. Goodbye.
《基本法》確保咗一國兩制可以行穩致遠，令香港保持獨特地位。
低稅率以及健全嘅基礎建設，亦都令到